Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, most of us born and raised in the Brighamite branch off of Joseph Smith's church do not realize that we're a branch off and that there are other branch offs. This video is going to focus on the Temple Lot in Independence, Missouri, and the owners, who are the Church of Christ as the name of their church. And so, according to the Brighamite Church under Nelson, these guys are apostate Korihors because Jesus is angry that they're leaving out the name Jesus from the name of their church. Our Jesus is better than your Jesus. The Temple Lot Church of Christ was founded by Granville Hedrick. He was ordained as the Apparently, there was a group of people who formed the church in July 1863, April 6th. Oh, wait a minute. Established a separate organization. Yeah, there's some confusion going on here. Whoever wrote this Wikipedia article is not making it clear. Because I'm seeing the summation section, and it doesn't make any sense. As compared with the text. Dear God. So let's go to the origins. Let's see. So by the 1860s, 5 early Mormon branches found themselves unaffiliated with any larger group. Located in Bloomington, Illinois, Crow Creek, Illinois, Half Moon Prairie, Illinois, Eagle Creek, Illinois, and Vermilion, Indiana, these branches united under the leadership of Granville Hendrick in May 1863. On July 18, 1863, Hendrick was ordained as president. They just got through saying earlier here, dear God, was it a Mormon who did this? A Brighamite? Dear God, they said that they don't have a president. It's the Quorum of the 12 that leads. And I just... He was ordained as president, prophet, seer, and revelator. Notice no translator either. Participating in Hendrick's organization was John E. Page, there's a familiar name, who had been an apostle under Smith. The Temple Lot Church claims Joseph Smith as the founder from April 6, 1830 in Fayette, New York. Thus, they keep the name Church of Christ. Notice that, Brighamites? And there's some debate over whether it was actually Fayette. Evidence suggests it was by Manchester. But you have to watch my videos because I'm the one who does the research. But there are a few people who know about it because they're the ones who led me on that path to check it. Manchester, because there were baptisms. Fayette is too far away from Manchester to have gotten there to do baptisms in Manchester, thus not Fayette. And claims to be the sole legitimate continuation of Smith's organization. They all do. Everybody claims to be the one true church and the successor. But no. Like the Brighamites are not the true successors, neither is this Church of Hedrick. Hedrick later distanced himself from the title of president as he ultimately came to believe that this was an unscriptural office. See what happens when you don't get the scriptures. Brigham Young steals the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants because he forged some Doctrine and Covenant sections. The reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has the Joseph Smith translation. Oh my hell. And these guys got nothing. And they're just making it up. I'm looking at this for the first time, guys. There have been so much to study that this was low on priorities. But because of the main theme in the Doctrine and Covenants in section 45 that we're going to get to at the end of this, I need to bring these guys up. What? At the time of his commencement in 1863, Hedrick retained the name the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for his organization, reflecting his insistence that it was a continuation of Smith's church. Oh, you fell for Brigham Young's trap. Oh my God. It doesn't say what his origins are with the church. Which had adopted that name in 1838. Yep. That Brigham, the evil bastard. This was soon shortened to the Church of Christ because it's too long. See, in case you're not following me, you don't understand. You're not studying, so you don't know. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, organized by Brigham Young, claims that in 1838, Joseph Smith gave section 115 in which he says, "Thus shall my church be called in the latter days, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." So Nelson gets up at the pulpit of conference and quotes that and says that Jesus is angry with nicknames. After 200 years, Jesus is finally angry. And yet, despite this, it does not follow the pattern of Joseph Smith's selection for the name. On the 6th of April, 1830, the 6 members designated the name as the Church of Christ, unanimously agreed. In 1834, the leaders of each of the quorums had a quorum committee correlation meeting, and Sidney Rigdon in the meeting, because we read this from the Joseph Smith papers in 1834, he raised his hand and said, "I propose a name change to the Church of Latter-day Saints. All in favor manifest by the same sign." Agreed. The name was officially changed by unanimous agreement of the leaders of the church. Seeing a pattern? And so in 1838, we get section 115 that says that Joseph was speaking and makes the claim, this is the name of the church now. See any problems with that? You should. It doesn't fit the pattern. So, there's the Joseph Smith history of 1838. After this revelation, which I think was February. And so Joseph Smith history was written after Joseph Smith gave this talk, supposedly. Change the name of the church. It's turning out to be a different video. And yet, in the Joseph Smith papers, when we check on the Joseph Smith history, there's brackets around Jesus Christ. And then you click on it, and a little pop-up box appears to the right and says, inserted by Willard Richards. Which church did he go to? Brigham's church. After Joseph Smith died, Willard Richards tampered and altered the Joseph Smith history that was published in 1842 in the Times and Seasons with that original name from 1834, the Church of Latter-day Saints. And so I can see how everybody got screwed up because of Brigham. Now, the reason why everybody got screwed up because of Brigham is because Brigham was in the missionaries. He was responsible only for going around and giving the Book of Mormons and setting up a church, and then leaving and going finding another area, converting with the Book of Mormons, setting up a church, and then leaving. That's all his assignment was to do. And yet, in the Joseph Smith history, you see that those missionaries were the cause of the problems for why he needed to come out with the history in 1838. And what happened to prevent Joseph Smith from publishing that 1838 history, as well as the Book of Abraham, which prevented him from finishing the Book of Abraham and not getting to Joseph's Book of Joseph? The Mormon War, caused by the Danites with election fraud in Daviess County, Missouri, for which Joseph Smith, who was vindicated in the Joseph Smith papers as being too far away and doing something with his wife, selling her land for the Relief Society, could not have been involved, as the Danites threatened a judge and a sheriff to sign affidavits that it was Joseph Smith who was threatening them with the band of Danites. They framed Joseph Smith and got him in Liberty Jail. And what happened? Brigham Young then cooed the church with the Danites. Sidney Rigdon gave his salt sermon. David Whitmer was threatened to get the hell out. And Thomas B. Marsh threatened to get out. Had nothing to do with his wife and milk scrapings. That was the Danites making that claim instead. And yet, Hinckley and Monson both got up at the pulpit of conference and told the false story, purposely neglecting the Danites. Who were the Danites? Well, they were the ones who went with Brigham. Brigham became the president of the 12. And Brigham Young was running the church with his militant Danites. I refer to you again to the Joseph Smith History of 1838. Verse 1. And so Mormons are in denial, or Brighamites are in denial of the Danites. They refuse to accept and acknowledge their third great grandfathers. And as a result, they are still militant. And they have blinded the other branch-offs because of it. And so, yeah, the corruption I see began already immediately here. You get these 5 smaller groups deciding to become one group. And they tried to name it the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at first, because Brigham Young was long gone in the territory of Salt Lake, Utah, technically. When was it called Salt Lake? It was called something else originally, wasn't it? Oh, that was the Great Salt Lake was called something else. But anyway, regardless. We'll have too many tangents on this video then. And so the temple lot was not a part of the legal name of the church. That's usually how it's identified from other churches of Christ. Not the only one. Sidney Rigdon, for example, called his church the Church of Christ. Even though I think he did. I think so. I can't remember. I think it is. But we don't want to keep adding more tangents to this. We want to get to the temple lot. And so the Hendrickites returned to independence in 1867 to purchase the designated lot for this temple. They were going to fulfill it and build the temple and wait for Jesus for his second coming. See, they also believe in Jesus Christ too. The damage that Brigham Young did, purposely setting a trap to completely erase Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and the learning of the Jews. But we don't want to go on those tangents. We're talking about temple lot. The church has been headquartered there ever since. In 1891, Joseph Smith III sued. He wanted claim of the land. And in that lawsuit, the judge obviously granted the lot to the Hendrickites, the Church of Christ of the Temple lot. But the judge designated Joseph Smith III as the legal and legitimate successor of Joseph Smith. Take that, Brighamites. So the Brigham Young, who was dead by then, and the church was shut down by then, 1887, the United States shut down Brigham Young's church under John Taylor, locked up John Taylor in prison for their tithing crimes. And so they had no claims in court. Take that, Brighamites. Church won't tell you this stuff. They keep lying to you because that's what the Danites do. And so that's what happened briefly with some bombshells in between about, we even got a One Mighty and Strong here. Hold on. Let's see. Late in the following month of July 1898, he, which would be W.D.C. Pattison, a suspended... let's read it from the beginning here. Okay. In July 1898, W.D.C. Pattison, a suspended member... See, it's suspended, not excommunicated or what's the other one called? I can't remember. It's not probation. Anyway, suspended member of the LDS Church from Boston, Massachusetts, which, Brighamites, was arrested and briefly detained after attempting to remove a fence placed around the temple lot. Which LDS Church? Because it's owned and operated by the Hendrickites. The LDS Church shouldn't have it. Who wrote this? 6. Fanatic burns a Mormon church. The New York Times. Oh, God. New York Times. Let's see. Late in the following month, he reportedly demanded that the church officials sign ownership of the property over to him because he believed he was the One Mighty and Strong. Now, they did not know about this. This was not put in to the Temple Lot Church's Doctrine and Covenants, assuming they have. We got to get the scriptures to find out here. Let's check that. Okay, it rejects the Doctrine and Covenants. It was a Brighamite. That's right. I was supposed to do that for you. I'd had it transferred over and everything. I never wrote it down, so I forgot about it. I was going to do a video on Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. He gave a first presidency statement concerning the One Mighty and Strong. Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. One Mighty First Press Statement. I wonder what happened to that. Anyway. Okay. So a Brighamite is excommunicated and has to flee for his safety. Because Brigham kills people. But this was 1898 when the United States came in, so it was suspended, excommunicated. It's the New York Times. They don't understand the lingo of the religion. And so apparently he was in Boston, Massachusetts at the time. And so maybe that's where he fled to. But anyway, he came to the temple lot, said, "I'm the One Mighty and Strong. Hand it over to me." Now, why would he say that? Isn't it Jesus? Section 85 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verse 7. It was put in the final year of Brigham Young's presidency, the year before he died, in his Doctrine and Covenants. And he put it in there because of some of the other stuff he put in there. He put it in there to be the One Mighty and Strong. that Joseph Smith therefore lost his authority as the president of the church, being verse 8. But Mormons in the Brighamite branch, who now see this, are now going, this is Brigham Young. He's the false prophet. And Mormons start thinking, hey, if Brigham Young's the false prophet, and then John Taylor, he's the false prophet, and then Wilford Woodruff, he's the false prophet, and then Lorenzo Snow, and then Joseph Fielding Smith Sr., which he then gives his first presidency statement about, and so on. It just continues in the Brighamite branch because Brigham Young was the one who put it in. And so the Community of Christ doesn't have it because of only having the Doctrine and Covenants of Joseph Smith up to a certain year, and they don't really accept anything after that because Brigham Young didn't put them in 1844, and the Community of Christ therefore doesn't accept the 1844 edition of the Doctrine and Covenants. Something like that. But it definitely not the year before he died, Doctrine and Covenants. And so the One Mighty and Strong was not until 1876. And so we're looking at 22 years later when this W.D.C. Pattison thought he was the One Mighty and Strong. This is the man like Moses. He is not Jesus. And Mormons, back in those days, were capable of reading and understanding what they read, but then not understanding how it is to be interpreted. They can read the Book of Mormon when it says it's in the learning of the Jews, and so they don't have the Pearl of Great Price with the Joseph Smith history in it either. These guys, the Hendrickites. So interesting. Okay, he was detained by police. They didn't have police back then. It was militia, wasn't it? Or did the Civil War result in police forces? By not putting it in the Constitution. The Confederates may have lost the Civil War, but they did a lot of damage to our government and the Constitution. All right. Fascinating. Okay. Wow. So this is taking a lot longer than I realized because there's other stuff in here. There's divisions. So yeah, they fell. And authority and the only true church. Temples, David Whitmer. Doctrines of the Church of Christ are heavily influenced by the writings of David Whitmer. Interesting. Whitmer published a pamphlet criticizing Sidney Rigdon and Smith, and addressed to all believers in Christ, yeah. Yep. That's when he first heard of the name that Brigham Young gave and Section 132. He didn't know about Section 132 until he was asked about it and writes an address to all believers in Christ, where he goes, oh, yeah, I guess that had to do with my brother-in-law, because Oliver Cowdery, who married a Whitmer girl, left the church because Joseph and Sidney were wanting to go in one direction with the church, and Oliver had an idea to take it in this direction and got upset and took his seer stone and left in 1838 before the bleep hit the fan. that year. And so on his way out, he said, well, Joseph Smith is having sex with his 14 or 15-year-old, I think, or 16-year-old handmaid. He was just making an accusation out of anger. There was no legitimate connection, but that paved the way for the Danites to go, we can use that against Joseph. And they were practicing polygamy in secret, telling women that Joseph Smith is doing this, but going, it's illegal. And don't tell your husband either. Dear God. Unless they're single, and then they are brought into the house where Higby. See, I got too many tangents. Church history, too much stuff to cover. I got to explain everything in every video because you get a Mormon or a critic who thinks they've read material from the CES letter or Rough Stone Rolling or Fawn Brody and think they know it all. You don't. Wow. I should have known this. It's happened way too many times in the past several years. When I do a historical video for the first time, as I'm going over it with you for the first time, should have known better. So there's more tangents, but yeah, I'm getting all excited now. Get the temple lot, because we want to get to the part about Jesus returning. They don't have the office of high priest or patriarch. That was Hiram Smith. What are you doing? So yeah, this is what's going to happen here in Utah. When Islam decides to rise up against America, like season 6 and 24 that I'm now at, the prophets are going to flee, and then you're going to have Mormons who are temple workers who memorize the ordinances of the temple and have the temple text memorized, which is going to be tricky because only the Salt Lake temple ordinance workers will have it memorized. The others have a video to take it for granted. But they'll have that knowledge, but then your stake presidents and church leadership, they'll know the handbook, so they'll know administration stuff. And then you're going to have regular members of the church who recall hearing in a class or when they were on their mission or at BYU in a Book of Mormon class. Yeah, you're going to have a lot more myths popping up because they don't have the scriptures. They're not referencing the Joseph Smith papers and etc. Because only the rich are buying them. And so the internet may be cut off from us to access the actual site if the church being destroyed doesn't destroy the site online. Fascinating. So yeah, those temple lot guys, when this Brighamite who's been excommunicated comes to them and says, I'm the man like Moses, hand over your church, which I can see how he got excommunicated. It was 1898, wasn't it? List of LDS church presidents. Because I think it's... Yeah, it's Lorenzo Snow. Well, ordination. Okay, that's birth. September. No, it was Wilford Woodruff. Because it was July. Lorenzo Snow didn't get put in until September 13th. And so it was after Wilford Woodruff died. He probably thought he was supposed to lead the church, and the church excommunicated him for it. See what? It's important. Persons, places, events, dates. Got to have them separated. Then you do the check, look for patterns, and then identify the anomaly, and then run the test. So there's the test. So if I were to check on this WDC Pattison, we can check to see if there's more to that confirms my theory. Fascinating. All right. So they believe that Jesus is coming to the temple lot for the second coming. And it's unclear that they even know it's the second coming, the latter days. But it's not the second coming. That's the whole point. It's learning of the Jews. So, Section 45. March 7th, 1831. Joseph Smith is giving Mormons a prophecy in story parable form, similar to section 101, starting in verse 43. But he's using, as the backdrop for it, Joseph Smith Matthew. He's making some dramatic changes here. And so the Joseph Smith Matthew from the Joseph Smith translation, no, that's not authoritative, even though it's put in our canon. This is what you need to pay attention to. Because Joseph Smith told Mormons all of the Bible prophecies about the coming of the Christ is all about Mormons and the Mormon Christ who will be a Mormon of the Brighamite branch. Section 103, verse 16. Though one mighty and strong, as he is popularly known. And so Joseph Smith obviously knows all of this information prior to. And so this is just 1 year later, 11 months later, and he's talking about the latter days here. And he's revising Matthew and specifically saying to Mormons, it's about you. And so Mormons are supposed to understand that what he's saying is supposed to be interpreted with them in the latter days. So us. So when he talks about Jesus, it's not Jesus. It's the Mormon born in the Brighamite church whose name will be Crossroads of Emmanuel. You gotta follow me. and it's not Jerusalem. It's where the great and abominable church is headquartered. Salt Lake City. And Utah, Judah. It also can be the United States of America, depending on the story and the prophecies to be understood. But there is a dualism because America is not a theocracy. At least the church is not taken over yet, or Islam has not taken over yet, or Christianity evangelicals have not taken over yet, but evangelicals have the lead. And so, this is what you're supposed to do to replace all of this. so that you understand what Joseph Smith is saying and how to interpret it. And now that we're in the final year of the latter days, oops, spoiler alert for those of you who are new and still listening after 40 minutes. And so, because Bruce does not put it in here in the division of the verses. Commanded to build. Let's try verse 63. Wars. Yeah. 19 July 1840 also needs to be factored in with your study of this, because you got to combine the scriptures and the prophecies together to understand it. He says it'll be called the New Jerusalem, but in 19 July 1840 he clarifies both passages in which it's southern Illinois, and it will be the two mountain cities of Zion and New Jerusalem. That's what Isaiah is talking about. The word of the Lord from Zion, then the law from New Jerusalem, something like that, Jerusalem. And so Mormons, whichever branch off, are confused on this and think that the New Jerusalem will be in Jerusalem and that Zion is Missouri, or Nelson says it's Salt Lake, as Brigham Young set it up to be that. Oh look, the Most High God. Most High. Does that mean a rank? Or the sun at noonday? Amen, the Egyptian sun god. Yes, Emmanuel, Amen El. If I have to keep repeating everything, along with the tangents that I'm coming up with, I will never get through with this video. Yep, this is the spot. Sort of. I don't see the quote, but I do see the other part. And so the glory of the Lord shall be there, and the terror of the Lord also shall be there, insomuch that the wicked will not come unto it, and it shall be called Zion. We were just told it was called the New Jerusalem. 19 July 1840. Two mountain cities, like pyramids, for the Star of David. The wicked will say, okay. And it shall come to pass among the wicked, which is the rest of the world, every man that will not take his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. This is what's coming, guys. The news, still, as of this evening, when I just checked it before this video, there are pro-Palestinian violent protests around the world, from Sydney, Australia, to the UK, to here in America. Everybody is rising up to defend Palestine. They're claiming that the Jews, Israelites, need to stop their self-defense and back off and leave the Palestinians alone and let the food turn back on the water and the electricity. You're being mean. We need to stop this. We need to have peace. You are supporting Hamas when you do that. And thus you are supporting terrorism. And thus you are a terrorist. This is what terrorists do. They claim to be the victims. When the people who are bullied and attacked stand up and defend themselves, they knew this is what Israel would do. That's why they attacked them when they attacked them. They purposely have staged this event to go worldwide. That's why the Palestinian Islamic jihadist group bombed the hospital, their own hospital with their own people. You need to understand they believe that their people have the law of sacrifice, that they are willing to give their lives, if necessary, in sustaining, defending the kingdom of Allah. And that should sound very familiar to the Brighamite Danites. And so, yes, the prophets are going to sacrifice you. As the missionaries are in great danger now, because there shall be gathered unto it out of every nation under heaven, and it shall be the only people that shall not be at war one with another. So the peace, safety, and refuge is earlier. Can I find it? I, the Lord, will be in their midst, and his glory shall be upon them, and he will be their king and their lawgiver. And it's a human. He's Mormon of the Brighamite Church. So if these other branch-offs want to join, they already know that they need to have Zion, and that's where their Christ is going to come, but they're looking for Jesus, aren't you, Mormons? Of the Brighamite branch-off. Parable of 10 Virgins. I am going to have to type it in. Try to keep it under 50 minutes. Peace, safety, refuge. Section 4566. Yeah. I had to keep going. It's just off. And it's right there. It's right there. I skipped over it. 66. And it shall be called a New Jerusalem, a land of peace, a city of refuge, a place of safety for the saints of the Most High God. It was right there. I read it and it... Yep. And so notice that it's specifically for Mormons, and it's of the Brighamite Church, because they're the ones who are being held in bondage by those terrorist Danites, except those members who support the terrorist of the Danites. And they too are terrorists. And that's the frustrating thing I have, is that Mormons want to be evil. They want to be terrorists. They don't want to accept that they're supposed to be Jewish. The learning of the Jews, the language of the Egyptians, that the scriptures are all about them if they would just remove their Christian goggles. It's all you have to do. Just take them off. Put on the learning of the Jews, Urim and Thummim goggles, and all of a sudden, there you are. And all of the stories throughout all the scriptures of the Bible and the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants, everything, it's about you, Brighamites, not the temple lot. Barely made it. So yes, bring your missionaries home. I've got a video for tomorrow to bring them home, as I did during COVID.